most of the reason for changing to 12 volts is because a lot of people think that these Jeeps don't start on 6 volts. But everybody has to remember 6 volts was in automobiles up until probably the mid 50s. I mean, and the cars started. It's just that most of the time you get an old vehicle, whether it's a Jeep or anything else, and it don't want to start, probably the starters wore out. Probably the battery cables are shot, or somebody replacing with thin 12 volt battery cables, and the cables aren't big enough to pull the amperage to turn the starter over. But if you get everything back to snuff, if you get the starter rebuilt, get the cables on, have good wiring harnesses on it and stuff, the 6 volt starts just fine. It's a little bit slower, but they still start. Most of my old Jeeps I still have 6 volts, and I really don't have any trouble with them. You know, they'll sit there for a couple months and you pump the gas and pull the choke, and they start. If you're putting a V8 or something in a Jeep and stuff, well, yeah, yes, you want to go to 12 volts. Or if you're going to put a lot of off-road lights on and a lot of accessories and you want a stereo in it and all that stuff, well, that's another reason you want to go to 12 volts. It's what anybody, it's whatever the person who has a Jeep, whatever they desire to do, but it's not a necessary thing that you have to do it if you're going to keep it all stock. You know, they do work on 6 volts. In a lot of cases, yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Put the 12 volt in and they think it fixes all the problems. If your starter is wore out and your battery cables are shot and your spark plug wires are bad and everything else, changing to 6 volt to 12 volts from 6 volts isn't always going to cure all your problems. In the end, it's whatever you want to do with it, and we'll help you out. We can convert generators and starters to 12 volts if that's what you want to go with. And a lot of starters you can still let 6 volts, and as long as the Jeep starts right away, the starter will last for a long time. But if you got to crank the thing for 15-20 seconds every time you start it, well, it's going to burn that 6 volt starter out. You know, then you'll have to get something else anyway. When you go into 12 volts, you need to change the generator. You can either go to an alternator or get the generator converted to 12 volts. All your light bulbs, your voltage regulator. If you go to an alternator and use a one-wire alternator, then you don't need the voltage regulator. It's not real hard to do. It's fairly simple. The hardest thing is if you change to an alternator is making a bracket up and stuff, and finding the right pulley and stuff to put on it to run the wide belt. I like keeping my stuff original. I don't know why, because I'm a sort of a historian buff, I guess, and I like things the way they were.